Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is James Bonanno, and I will be your host for this Premiere Pro Daily Creative Challenge. Hopefully, you tuned in yesterday for our first lesson, which was all about color grading using the Lumetri RGB color tab in Premiere Pro. And today we're doing things slightly different, again, focused on just Premiere Pro this week. So once again, thank you for those that are tuning in. If you are joining us on YouTube and you're watching, the source files should be listed in the description below. If you're over on Behance, join the chat. If I have some time, I will answer some questions and make this as engaging as we possibly can for the next 25 minutes. That being said, let's hop into Premiere Pro and just do what I do and talk shop in Adobe Premiere and go over how to use high-res images as thumbnails with the footage that you already have in a project. So let's just hop right in, and here is my goofy self. For those that have the source files, you will not be seeing this project. I'm gonna use this sort of as a bonus at the end, just because the project file is really cumbersome and it's a lot of footage. So what you will see is a little bit simpler. It's just a few video clips from a recent trip that we had down to the Bahamas. Project file, we have a Photoshop file. And the goal today is to really just show you how to simply screenshot and export high-res images without having to worry about high-res photos that you may or may not have taken. If you're not a photographer and you are a filmmaker looking to create a thumbnail for TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, thumbnails are the way of right now. They're the way of the future, and they really get people to engage with your content right away. So I think the last part of any published video is that thumbnail, making sure it's compelling and ready to go. And we're just going to try to experiment with some ways to do that using Premiere and Photoshop in today's lesson. So welcome, Christelle. Welcome, Steve, Laura, Cody Bear. The whole gang is back. So I'm very, very excited. Okay, so we're going to start really, really basic today. We sort of bounce around from some more advanced and a little bit more basic. So for those that are already aware of how to do this, this may be a duplicate lesson, but we're going to show you anyway. So in our panel right here, if you're just opening Premiere, what I want you to do is go to Command-N, a really good shortcut. We will be talking about some of my favorite shortcuts on Friday, so definitely do not miss that. But we're going to go into our settings mode, and this is how we create our sequences. I'm just going to go to a standard 23976, just a drop frame for 24 frames. We are going to make this 3840 by 2160, which is our 16:9 in 4K sequence. We want to have that really nice, impactful 4K sequence so that when we export that image, we're getting the highest resolution possible. Okay, so we're just going to create a new sequence name. We're going to call this drone footage for thumbnail. All right, and we're going to press OK. Okay, so we're doing this, we're just starting it from scratch. And again, I've already imported all these things. Since you would have these source files at home, if you're just opening Premiere for the very first time, Command-I will allow you to import all that footage, and you can just drag everything in, or you can literally take those folders and just drag them right here to our project window. So really, really simple. Okay, so what I like to think about when I'm going through footage, when I'm shooting footage, when I'm creating films or video, is what can stand out as a thumbnail. I think a lot of the time what performs well on YouTube is faces, and that's why before, when we first joined, I sort of scrolled to a recent video. You can see how big this timeline is. That project would have been very cumbersome for everyone to follow along on. But it seems like faces and something that's really, really engaging really just gets the attention of viewers on YouTube. On our channel, we've kind of ranged from thumbnails that do well, some don't perform as well. It seems like maybe subjects small in a frame just kind of entice the viewer. So what I like is I'm going to go through a couple of these clips of footage here. As mentioned, these are all just some drone clips, right? Some drone clips from a recent trip we had. I think the water and the color pops really well. This clip, this is just a nice little kind of drone shot here. So, that could be nice. That could work. But I feel like it doesn't really stand out to me. I don't think anybody would necessarily click on that unless there was, I don't know, something else in the frame. So let's go down. This is a really, really cool shot, but without context of the thumbnail, people might not know what it is. But basically this is, it's called the Glass Window Bridge in an island in the Bahamas, and you have the ocean and you have the Caribbean Sea on either side. So let's say you were creating a video about the Bahamas. That could be a really cool, compelling way to entice a viewer to say, "Ooh, this is interesting." Maybe it comes up in the title, Glass Window Bridge, such a unique place, or something like that. This thumbnail might actually make sense, okay? But for now, we're gonna do something different. Laura has a question about what drone I use. I use the DJI Mavic Pro 2, and I highly recommend it for things like this because the quality of the sensor, it's a Hasselblad sensor, so you have a really nice big sensor in that camera, so it's more easily, it's just easier to pull stills from it than some of the older drones that I've had in the past. So I think anything DJI nowadays is going to be amazing. So this video I really like. This is my wife Anna, who, if you're joining, you probably know she has been on here many times, but she's also a beautiful model and my travel buddy. So I like to put her in as many shots as I can. And I really like right here, right before it looks like that shadow came in or some weird exposure issue, there's that really nice bright light. And I love that because I know I can sort of come in here and I can tweak these blues. That red on her bathing suit really stands out. And I'm thinking that could be a really cool thumbnail, either in sort of a split frame or just as a 16:9 thumbnail for YouTube on its own. So I'm gonna go in here and let's just drag. We're gonna create an in point here, and let's just create our out point right before it changes, okay? And I'm gonna select A, bring up these arrows, V moves this over. So this I did already. We're gonna go to the sequence I made. And you can either drag the video directly in, or what I like to do is just press comma on my keyboard. It's a shortcut for inserting those clips. If you hover over right here, you'll see that that's the standard keyboard shortcut for that. So just a quick way to do it. All right, so here it is. This is I just think a really beautiful, simple, clean clip. And for the purposes of this video and this tutorial, I think it's a really good one to start with. What I always also try to think about when we're doing these thumbnails is there going to be text on it? Am I going to have other elements within this thumbnail? And so there's a video that I'm looking to make about, top places to visit in the Bahamas, or our trip to the Bahamas. And I want that title to feel like it fits the frame. And I want there to be negative space above and below, some of these, frames that I'm pulling out. So in this case, I think this works really well because I can punch in and I can still have a lot of that negative space around Anna. So I'm just gonna scroll a little bit here manually to see what I like. Because we shot this in 4K, I'm gonna go to my effect controls, and I'm just gonna scale this in just a little bit. Let's go to 120 so that I can move this. I wanna center this frame exactly. So right here in the corner, I have my safe margins. It's hard to see because of the color here is white, but they're there. I'm gonna also pull up my rulers here, and I'm gonna make sure that I am looking dead center here. Oh, my guides are already up. Okay, sorta. Yeah, there we go. So the center right here is where this blue is. So we're gonna need to move Anna over, and there she is. Now she's in the center of my frame. Okay, let's get rid of these. Let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of our safe margins. All right, and to me, this would be a really good, compelling thumbnail, in my opinion, okay? And because we didn't actually plan for any thumbnails, we're using the footage that we had. So I think that's a wonderful part about this little feature in this tool. So we come in here. Again, if you do not see this little camera button here on your program window, just go to plus and you'll see it in here, and then drag that manually right here into your little, these are kind of like your hot favorites right here. And this is one that I use a lot. Okay, so what this is gonna do, we go Shift E, and that is the shortcut for exporting this frame. All right, so we're gonna export this frame, and in this we have the ability to name it whatever. So I'm gonna say drone thumbnail. And what I like to do is I just go for PSD so that I don't confuse myself that this is the final image. I want this to go into Photoshop, and then from Photoshop, we're gonna save our final export. Okay, we have a path. So I'm gonna browse that path. And I've already saved that into our challenge folder here as a thumbnail, just so that I keep myself, organized again. And you can import it directly back into the project. Let's say you wanted to use this as a still frame or a freeze frame as a background. This is a really good way to do it. In this case, I'm not going to, just because we're doing something a little bit different, but that is an option. And you have all these different formats. So you can export a JPEG if you're just going from Premiere and that's your final destination. Maybe you're just throwing this on your phone, you're posting it on Instagram. That would be fine to have a compressed JPEG. But I want to use a TIFF file because I don't want to compress this image too much, because we'll be compressing it again in Photoshop. So I'm just going to go TIFF, try to make that file as big as possible. Okay. And we are going to actually name this. Let's just name this. Oh yeah, there we go. And press OK. All right. So here's our thumbnail, and we're going to go into our folder. And I now have our Photoshop file ready to go. All right. And I am going to actually open up a project file that you will all have in your source files. Okay. It's already open here, but I'm going to create a new file. Do not judge on my my lack of design. I'm a video creator, not a designer. So this is going to be pretty rough. Anyone feels like roasting me, go for it. But for YouTube thumbnail specific, that's more or less what I'm talking about today. Again, these thumbnails can be used for Instagram, for Reels, for TikTok, but I like to take that 16:9 and use it for YouTube specifically. And 1280 by 720 is going to be the best size thumbnail. It's kind of the standard for YouTube. The resolution, I like to adjust actually a little bit. It was in here lower, so I'm going to go 300. All right, and we're going to go drone thumbnail. Excuse me. Thumbnail for YouTube. All right. And press OK. Okay. So now we have our canvas set up. And quick disclaimer, I am not a Photoshop expert at all, but this is how my workflow works from Premiere to Photoshop to YouTube. All right. And yes, Laura, that question about keeping the resolution of the video, it does maintain that resolution. That is why it's important to make sure that you're editing and exporting that frame in that 4K resolution if it was shot in 4K. If it was shot in 1080, 1920 by 1080, that resolution might change a bit, but those YouTube thumbnails are pretty small, and chances are you're going to get enough resolution out of it as is. All right. So now we're going to come into our thumbnails, and we're just going to drag this right into our clip here, or in our canvas, excuse me. And boom, now we have everything fit the way we want it. We may want to tweak this ever so slightly, but what I'll do first is I'll go in here and I'll adjust the color a little bit. So I don't really like how aqua, I want to maybe bring that blue down a little bit. And I really want that red to pop with her bathing suit. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to start with a little, let's see here. Let's start with a little curves. Okay. Just a basic curves adjustment. Let's bring that mid-tone brightness up a little bit. We don't want to do too much there. And let's bring those, shadows under her. Oh, we got a little spider on my microphone here. That's what happens in the summer. So we're going to bring this down a little bit. So just a basic S curve. Okay. So before and after, we brought that brightness, we've adjusted some of that contrast. And then I want to go into the hue and saturation slider. All right. And I don't want to adjust the entire hue and saturation of this image. I just want to focus on the blues or that green tint. So we go into master, we're going to go to our blues, and basically to know if that's actually picking up that blue, all we're going to do is pull that saturation, and you can see that for some reason it's not really doing much. And so I'm thinking that maybe the tones of this aren't actually blue. They're more of that cyan or that green. Okay. So if we pull saturation, yeah, definitely cyan. We don't want to adjust it too much, but let's go maybe to 20. All right. So we're bringing this up. Let's go 25. Let's get a little wild, a little wild here. All right. And I'm actually going to come in here and adjust the hue. And what you'll notice is this is adjusting some of the image. It's not all cyan. There is some of that green in there, which we're going to adjust as well. So I just want to pull this over for it to not look weird. All right. Jennifer said, calm voice, there's a spider on my microphone. My wife is terrified of spiders. So, and I actually want to bring the lightness down because I'm kind of thinking, let's go to cyan again. There we go. I like having that a little bit lower. All right. And this is just, again, personal preference. As I mentioned yesterday, this is all my personal preference and sort of what I want to teach you. But this can, you could turn this into black and white. You can blow these colors out, whatever you choose to do, whatever you think works well. Again, the saturation here, I'm going to adjust. And what I want to do is I don't want her skin tone to go crazy. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go 40 on the saturation. And what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit. And this is really where you can see sort of that pixelation happening because it is a screenshot, but I'm going to add a layer mask. All right. And I'm going to come in here. Oops. Well, oh, that is a large brush. So we're not seeing the brush, but here we go. Layer mask. And I'm just going to erase her face because I've now saturated her way too much. And all I wanted to do is just saturate that, that bathing suit a little bit. Okay. So now we have some stuff happening. We got before, after, it's looking pretty good. All right. And in the presence of time here, also make sure you're always saving. I just realized I hadn't saved this yet. So for the sake of argument, we're going to save that. All right. Okay. So now what I want to do, this is a thumbnail, as I've mentioned many times. We want to come in here and we want to add a little bit of text. We want to add something that's going to, make it pop a little bit more. Where is she? Is she in a bathtub? What is my wife doing in the middle of the ocean? And where is that? So let's give a little context. And I think the first thing I want to do, if I was a viewer and I just saw something like Guide to the Bahamas or your go-to Guide to the Bahamas, that might actually spark some interest, get my attention. I may click that. I see this, this small subject in the middle of the frame. I'm good to go. All right. So let's just come in here and just, let's just write out Bahamas. And I believe I actually put this font in the source files. I cannot remember if I did. Hopefully I did. This is a font that I found just for this tutorial, and it kind of looks beachy. It's got that Caribbean vibe, which I liked. And I just want to make this text pretty much fill the whole frame because we have the space to do it. And what I'd like to do is almost have her kind of enveloped and masked, that's hard to say fast, around her leg, let's say. Okay, so we got Bahamas in real big letters. And I'm not even gonna look at the reference that I did because I think it's gonna look different. And maybe we're gonna like the way it looks today more than what I did. All right, and what we wanna do is add another text layer. Again, these are all separate layers so that you're not working on top of that layer. So we're gonna go to our text tool again, and let's just say the best things to do. All right, best things to do in the Bahamas: lay in the middle of the ocean and wait for a shark to come. That's definitely not one of the best things to do, but that's luckily not what we did. So this is looking pretty cool already, even just white, I usually just start there. I try to just start and get some placement and figure out, okay, what am I looking to do here? Maybe we actually want to zoom in more on this image. So let's move this over here, and I'm going to actually come in here and I'm going to zoom Anna in a bit. All right, because now it's kind of cool that she's cutting the frame and there's some symmetry going on. So if we zoomed out, a good lesson with thumbnails too is to zoom out and be like, okay, did that catch my attention? Is that something that I might click on? Let's go back to our clip here. I actually think, okay, come on. If that's happening to anyone in Photoshop, auto select up here will make sure that the layer that you are selected on is in fact the one that you want to adjust. So what I want to do is I actually think it'd be cool to like cut the A out around her leg so it looks like she's on top of that A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Bahamas. I'm going to add a mask. All right. And I'm just going to take the opacity down a little bit so I can see where her legs are. I'm going to go into my brush tool, I believe, right? B on the keyboard will do that. All right. And I'm going to just come in here. And this is usually better with a hard brush. As you can see, like it looks a little awkward that way. So I'm going to come back, do undo. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to change my hardness to 100. And I'm just going to come in here really quickly, just because of the sake of time today. And let's just, paint those legs out. And from there, now we have a cool little, like Anna's floating on top of that A, which looks pretty sweet to me. All right. Yeah, alternative. Jennifer says the alternative is the best things not to do in the Bahamas. Sure, best things not to do in the Bahamas, not get attacked by a shark. In all seriousness, it is a beautiful place and we had an amazing time. All right, so last thing I want to do is I want to add a little background to this. Let's just add a little rectangle just to make that white pop. Again, total creative freedom on these. This is just the way I like to look at things. And I like to try to have some consistency in our thumbnails. Our YouTube channel is Leave the Map. So if you're looking for what we've done in the past, feel free to go give that a check out. And I like this yellow because again, it's kind of going with a nice complementary theme here. And we got to make sure that this is sitting above. I think that looks really cool. Let's just play around with this thing now. Let's go to a drop shadow. I mean, that's, in my opinion, slightly amateur, but like I said, I am kind of an amateur in Photoshop, and you know, it's a thumbnail. So we want people to, maybe people will be like, that's a really amateur thumbnail. I'm going to click on it and I'll be like, okay, cool. My job is done. All right. That looks cool. And let's go to Bahamas. Let's change things up a bit. Rather than doing the drop shadow, let's duplicate Bahamas and let's sort of make our own custom drop shadow here. And let's change the color to something that's actually in the image. Let's do like one of those darker blues. So we have our little color picker here. I don't know why that's not working, but we'll do something maybe like in that blue realm. All right, let's take this below. That looks pretty sweet. Very, I don't know, very Caribbean-ish to me. Also, my voice has probably cracked a million times today. If you are used to watching me do these, you know that that's a common occurrence at 30, almost 32 years old. Not sure why I do that. So, you know, this is starting to come together. This is looking like maybe we could tweak the, I actually like the blue of that more now than what I have. So we're going to copy this code and we're going to go back into our drop shadow because I believe we can change the color of that drop shadow. All right. And we're going to just paste this. So now they both have that same shadow. And this is nice because it's a little more subtle. It sort of blends in with this, this little bar we have. And I don't know, that's looking pretty good right now. I don't know if anyone in the chat has any suggestions for me. If you think that maybe we need to do something that's a little more compelling, or maybe we actually change the color of Bahamas here. Oops. I don't know why that dropper tool is not working right now, but, you know, and a lot of this is just seeing what works, right? Like that's way too in your face and we don't want to have that blend with her red bathing suit. I think white's just a nice look here. We can always come in here. We can adjust our, what am I looking for here? Our stroke. This is inside right now. So if we wanted to go outside, that's a lot. We don't want to do that. Maybe we want to go in the center. That is also a lot. And if we mess around with these colors, I mean, that's kind of cool, but that's really, really sort of messy. So I don't really know if I like the stroke. I'm going to turn that off. All right. Best things to do in the Bahamas. Maybe this is like a slightly different, let's see, where is my, usually I like to use text that has different line weights too, because in these kind of situations, you can incorporate different line weight. But you are joining us on Creative Cloud, and there are plenty of experts and creatives out there that do a significantly better job than I do in Photoshop. But the goal of this specific lesson, again, to recap, is to go from here in Premiere Pro very, very quickly without having high-res photos that you've taken for a thumbnail and use what you've shot as the thumbnail. And so again, like if this, let's say this is one of my, from my previous video, the bend video that I talked about yesterday, like I actually think something like that could be a compelling thumbnail for a bend video. What am I looking at? Who's that face? You know, those sorts of things really entice people. And I think you can just have fun with pulling some of those things out. Chances are most of the creators that you're watching online have done the same thing. And hopefully you can, you know, start to do the same as well. So lastly, if I was going to export this and be ready to go, pretty easy, quick export as PNG, or we want to save as. Some of these sort of changed. I don't really love the new layout. No offense, Creative Cloud, but let's go export as PNG, and we can save that to our file, and we are good to go and use that for our thumbnail. So that's it for me, everyone. Very, very quick and I don't know, brief tutorial about thumbnails, ways to keep the audience engaged, and you can do that all in Premiere Pro and Photoshop connected. So the beauty of Creative Cloud, it just keeps getting more and more powerful. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, where we will be diving into audio. Very, very exciting stuff. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.